Hello, STEM girlies. Welcome back to Computer Sheience, the podcast that connects ambitious and driven girls just like you to the trailblazing women of STEM. Our guest for today is an incoming freshman at the University of Pennsylvania, Raithatha. A recent grad from Marriott Ridge High School, Ami plans to explore philosophy, politics, and economics in college. So, whether you're exploring a career in STEM or just looking for inspiration, this episode is packed with wisdom you won't want to miss. So, grab your drinks, grab your matcha, and let's get ready to hear all about Ami's incredible journey, experiences, and insights from high school. Let's dive right in. So, Ami, could you start by sharing with our viewers a little bit about yourself, your work, and what you've majorly been involved with in high school?
Yes, of course. Nice to meet you all. My name is Raithatha. I'm a rising freshman at UPenn, and I'm hoping to major in philosophy, politics, and economics. I landed on this major because I intend to pursue the pre-law track. So eventually, hopefully, I would like to become a lawyer. And so throughout my high school, I've made an effort to take on experiences that have led me to decide that I want to pursue law in the long run. So a couple of the things I've done have been internships. So I've interned at a public defense office in my state and the governor's office and an immigration firm. So those things have really showed me that I do want to be a lawyer and I do want to help people, and this is the career field that I would like to pursue. Outside of the professional side, I also really like to crochet, and so a lot of my high school experience has been crocheting and donating, which I started off by myself, and then I started doing it with some friends, and eventually it kind of blossomed into this organization that donates thousands of crocheted items to communities, all across the East Coast. So that is primarily what defines my high school experience so far.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I'm so excited to hear more about your crocheting work later on in the podcast. When you said using high school to kind of like figure out that yes, you wanted to be a lawyer and you still want to, you aspire to be a lawyer, I think that's amazing because when it comes down to it, I think high school should be a time to just figure out like two to three things that you're interested in and then try to put yourself in activities that help you realize, am I interested in this or not? So that is really, really great. For my next question, I just want to know politics and economics are widely, so these are great fields, but they're pretty wide apart. And what inspired you to pursue the interdisciplinary fields like this? Was there a moment when you realized, okay, I want to do philosophy and politics and economics? How'd you come to realizing this?
I think that I always knew that the type of learner I am, I would never be able to unilaterally study one field. So I believe UPenn does have an economics major, a political science major, a philosophy major, or something to that capacity. But I wouldn't have enjoyed picking just one because I have a deep interest in all three fields. And on top of that, what I learned from my internships, particularly the one at the Office of the Public Defender, is often issues are not black and white, and it's really useful to be able to look at what seems like a quote unquote simple issue through different lenses. And that the major that I've selected, philosophy, politics, and economics, is exactly that, looking at black and white issues and topics through multiple lenses. So there's the theoretical, which is philosophy, there's the practical, which is politics, and there's the applicable, which is economics. And that is why I selected this major, because I think it's perfect for someone trying to pursue law, but specifically the branch of law that I'm interested in.
I love how you phrased that. So, in your view, we don't have many people studying politics in computer science. So you're kind of our first guest. So I'm so excited for this. What's the biggest misconception you think people have about studying politics?
I think a misconception that I've definitely noticed is that studying politics has to be polarizing. I don't necessarily believe that the study of politics has to include, picking a political side or standing firmly on your political beliefs. I think that there is a way to study it in a way where you are examining it from an outsider's perspective before you make your final judgment. And I think that the study of politics is valuable for that reason, because you are studying things that are topical, issues that are currently affecting our world. But you're also examining the structures that have led our world or our country or whatever country's political system you're studying. You're examining what has led that system to the spot it is at today. So I think that studying politics comes with a lot of analysis, and I like that it gives you the freedom to form your own conclusions based on history and then the present as well, which is why I think when people look at politics as a field of study, they think of it as a very narrow field that deals with a very specific subset of topics, and I don't necessarily believe that is the case.
Do you think that philosophy and ethics align with economics, and how do you think they align? Or do you think they're always in tension with each other?
I think I think that economics is foundational. I think that the study of economics is not the study of crunching numbers or making the biggest profit. And sure, that might be a part of it, but really the study of economics is the study of a certain way of thinking. You learn to think like an economist. So it is weighing the cost of making a certain decision and then comparing those costs to the benefits of that decision and making the best out of the resources that you have given. And those are principles that can apply to any field of study. That doesn't even have to be limited to philosophy and politics. It could be biology or chemistry or engineering. I think that they might not work hand in hand, but the study of economics builds the base upon which I can pursue my study of philosophy and politics, because it frames your thinking when you're approaching different types of learning. So I don't think that they have to be in tension, and I think that if you go about learning the right way, they can, come together in some sort of educational harmony that makes it really effective to study all together.
For sure. I love how you said economics is the foundation. I think truly it's the foundation for so many different fields. And when you can weigh the costs of different options and make the best of your resources, that was so, so important. And I think definitely economics does or is the foundation for so many fields. So I totally agree with you there. You have also served as a legal intern at multiple different places. This is absolutely amazing. So, could you talk to us about being a legal intern or legislative fellow at the Maryland Senate, Sherry Hoydra Law Office, and the Office of the Public Defender? So, what did you do in each of these positions? When did you have them? And just how was your experience here?
Sure. I can go through each of them individually because I absolutely loved working in each of those positions, and they hold a very special place in my heart as I pursue my professional goals. So I'll start with the Maryland Senate. I was a legislative fellow for State Senator Katie Freihester. She was an incredible mentor, her and her chief of staff, Bridget O'Toole. Both of them worked together to provide me with an experience studying policy. So when I worked with them, I primarily worked on policy research relating to any topics that she was currently developing legislation on. But they did a really good job of making sure their interns were working on topics that they were interested in. So I was working on a project where they were trying to establish some sort of screening of sorts to screen people in the legal system for any mental health issues or, any issues in general that could affect their ruling or their decision-making processes. And that allows people to get treatment where instead of, retribution or punishment. So if there was a person who had a mental illness who caused them to commit a crime, for example, or they weren't in a state where they were making their own decisions, instead of receiving a punishment that ultimately would not help with their condition, this legislation helped to establish some guidelines to identify any signs of those issues. So I thought that was really interesting because personally my interests are in criminal justice and immigration law. So working on that, I found that super valuable. And I also interned at the Maryland Office of the Public Defender under attorney Ebasitel Chandler. And she is an incredibly talented public defender who allowed me to work with clients and on cases that I had never seen before. Because the job of a public defender usually is not to go there and prove that their client didn't do what they're being accused of. I don't think ever that's like the only goal. But instead, the public defender's job, I came to learn, is to build the story of the client. So there was one case in particular that I remember very clearly because it really forced me to change my own mindset. And this case was, I received the file and I asked my mentor, what is this file? And she said, it's a case where a woman has been accused of stealing a couple $1,000s worth of items from the store, and she was caught on security camera. I just need you to read through her file. And before I opened it, I was thinking, okay, she was caught on camera. They know she did it. I'm not sure what's to be done about this case. And that was my immediate mentality, and I had been working there for months at this point. And I opened the file and I realized that she had been taking items for her family. It was diapers, baby formula, baby clothes, clothes for her toddler, things like that where she didn't have a choice. She was driven to this situation because of her own financial instability. And while that doesn't mean that it was okay for her to commit the crime she did, it provides an explanation. And she was just a victim of a system that is broken and does not serve people like her. And so I quickly came face to face with the mentality that kind of does plague the justice system, which is guilty before proven innocent. Before even opening the file, I assumed there would be nothing that could be done to help this woman. Then I opened it up and I realized she should have been helped a long time ago. And now that she's in this situation, she needs support, not judgment. So that internship also was incredibly valuable for me because not only did I learn so much from my mentor, but I had to look at my own mentality and give it a change. If I want to be a lawyer in this field and if I want to do this work, at some point I would have to think like the attorneys think. And the last internship we talked about was the Sherry Hoydra Law Office, and that is primarily an immigration firm, and there I would translate and work with clients. So that was also incredibly valuable to me because I would be translating sometimes very grueling stories for these clients who weren't that much older than me. A lot of them, I'm 18 years old, and some of them would walk in and they'd be 18, 19, 20, only a couple years off from where I was. And they'd be talking about the persecution they faced in sometimes their home country, from their government, from their families. And translating their stories, I realized I was using my voice to give them a chance to use theirs. I was allowing them to share their story, where otherwise the lingual barrier probably would have prevented them from speaking about the truly awful things they've had to experience so far. And by being in the middle and translating from Hindi or Gujarati into English, I was able to kind of give these people at least one lifeline, like a person that can help them remain in this country, because a lot of them were looking for citizenship. So that it was a really emotional time at that internship because I got a chance to connect with all these clients and I learned about their families and their life stories, and I would say it was a little overwhelming in the sense that I didn't expect to hold this much responsibility as a high school intern, but the chance that I got to have such an important part in these people's lives will stay with me forever, undoubtedly.
I love all the diverse experiences that you talked about. The story about the lady stealing the baby formula, that is just so sweet. Like how you phrase that, that there is the part that she needs to be given and it's, guilty before proven innocent. I love that. What was it like researching at the University of Maryland, Francis King Carey School of Law? Do you think that the internships that you did kind of tied in with this research, or was this research completely separate?
I definitely think that my internship at the Office of the Public Defender tied in with this research because, so since my freshman year, I had been studying Gideon v. Wainwright, which is a landmark Supreme Court case which established the widespread use of public defense across the country. It made public defenders more accessible to people all over the world. It kind of lowered the threshold of poverty or indigency that you need to get a public defender. So once I, started researching that case, I realized public defense is a pretty well established thing. It's a pillar in our society, but as I continued to research throughout my freshman and sophomore year, I was curious. I wanted to know more about it, and the more I learned about public defense, the more I learned about the problems that plague the public defense system. And so I started thinking public defenders are incredibly overburdened. They're not allowed to turn away cases, so they have to accept everything that comes to their office. Each public defender takes on maybe 30 cases a week, if not more, which is an insane amount of, clients to be juggling and trials to be going to. And on top of that, they're vastly underpaid. I interned at that office and I could see how underfunded it was and how they had to pass work amongst themselves to, get everyone's cases done on time. And so researching in my freshman and sophomore year and then working there my junior year led to this culmination of all the information I had gathered where I said there has to be some sort of solution. And that's when I reached out to Professor Guha Krishnamurthy, who is a professor at the University of Maryland, Francis King Carey School of Law. And I presented him with my research from the past and the issue I had discovered, and he was interested. He said, I do think this is a very present issue. And we worked together and I, bounced some ideas off him for solutions I had. And we landed on one solution. And that solution is diversion programs. So diversion programs work to divert first-time offenders or first-time offenders with low-level cases like, a parking situation or possession, like a drug possession or something that isn't as high level as some of the other crimes that are coming into the public defense office. It takes those cases and diverts them into another program that helps them learn what their mistake was and how to make it better, and do community service or something else to make up for whatever they had done. And by doing that, these cases are diverted away from public defense systems and into this third party program. So that reduces the caseload on each public defender, and it gives people a chance to try again without this permanent mark on their record. That's the solution we decided on. And while I researched with Professor Krishnamurthy, the knowledge that he imparted every time we met, it was incredible. He brought up points that I never would have considered, because as someone who is immersed in the field, he had the most on the ground knowledge of the things I was talking about. So I would discuss with him some solutions I had in mind, and he would tell me, great idea, but practically, how do you think that implementation would go? And so I think it was really great to have the opportunity to speak with someone who was so knowledgeable in their own field, because it was so clear how much he cared about his work and how he made time to help a high school student with a far-fetched idea come up with solutions to a project that he had he didn't really have any stakes in it. He was genuinely just there to help me grow as a researcher. And so at the end of my research, I developed a paper and he reviewed it, and I uploaded it to the Social Science Research Network as like a preprint publication. And I felt so accomplished when I did that, because I put this together and I got the approval of Professor Krishnamurthy. And he is incredibly knowledgeable. So after I had uploaded it, I spoke to him and he said, "This is pretty good work we've done here." And I agreed. It was a great research experience. And I also know that going into college, learning how to research properly using credible sources and things like that is something that will serve me well, all 4 years of college.
For sure. And mentors are so incredible to have. I think they end up guiding you to a place where you don't even think you could reach before, and they just show you a new light on what you're working on. So definitely agree with you there. Now I want to segue into the crochet side of you. So could you talk to us about the organizations you founded, Crochet for Smiles, as well as the Teen Crochet Lab?
Sure. I would say that Crochet for Smiles is it's my pride and joy from high school. I really enjoyed being able to run that organization. So I'll give you a little bit of context. I've been crocheting since I was maybe 10 years old. And during COVID, obviously, it became a little harder to do anything else but sit inside. And so obviously I had a lot more time to be crocheting. And I was making all these items and they were just kind of piling up in my room because there was nowhere for them to go. And so after a certain point, I started donating those items to just organizations near me. We have a friend who works with cancer patients, so I donated a bunch of caps to them. And then we had plushies and scarves and things like that. And I had no use for them, so I would be donating them to organizations all over Maryland. And soon enough, I took it to the crochet club at my school, and they were interested. So we ran our first donation drive through the school. And after that, I got other schools in my county involved, and then it went from high school students to fully grown adults who had items to donate. And it just continued to grow and grow because of the interest that people had in using their craft to give back to the community. I would say I had a hand in starting it, but it was the people, the volunteers, that really made it widespread. And our mission was to spread some form of joy through crocheting, because all of us volunteers get so much joy out of crocheting and creating, and we wanted to re-inject that joy into our local community. So we've donated to places like children's hospitals and adult hospitals and animal shelters, and we did classes for a while at the Casey Cares Foundation where we would teach the kids and their families how to crochet. So it was such a fulfilling experience, especially because, life can get busy, especially in high school. And when I was between college applications and SAT studying and all these different things on like the high school checklist, it was great to know that one of my quote unquote responsibilities was hanging out with some kids at the library and teaching them how to crochet for the first time. It was really wholesome. It was really fulfilling. And that is kind of what the Teen Crochet Lab is. So me and my best friend, Sarah Gajangi, we started the Teen Crochet Lab to give kids a chance to try crocheting without having to buy their own materials. Because if we provide the yarn and the hooks and the instruction, all they have to do is show up and give it a try. And that's all we can really ask for from the next generation of crocheters is that they give it a chance before they decide maybe it's not for them. And what we found is a lot of people that should have decided that yes, crocheting was for them. They really enjoyed learning their first slip knot or their first chain stitch. And more than that, more than learning, they're making friends with each other. So if one of the kids would pick up the chain a little bit quicker, she'd walk over to the other side of the table and she'd go, "Does anybody need help?" And then she'd go around showing the other kids, and she had just learned herself, but she felt this connection. She said, "We're all crocheting together. I'm going to help you out." They'd never met before, but they walked out of that room friends. And I think that, I know she did and I do as well, felt really grateful that we had the opportunity to kind of build this community for them. Like they came here with the intention of learning how to crochet, but now you're coming back every week seeing the same people. You're forming this new group, this new community that you can go to. And I think it was really nice. So that's what the Teen Crochet Lab was about. And the kids were able to take home some yarn and a hook, and they would get to practice. And soon enough, they would start buying their own materials and start making their own projects. And watching their development was just incredible. So I did really enjoy running both of those initiatives.
Yes, they both sound amazing. And I like how you said, as you're going through the high school checklist, crocheting, that probably served as a very therapeutic thing for you. So that's absolutely amazing. For me, that's yoga. So I teach yoga to elementary and middle school kids. And so it's so relaxing to have something that you're genuinely passionate about and then you're sharing and spreading the thing with other people. That is so, so cool. So I know crocheting, I know for the people who do it, I have friends who crochet, they love it so much. But for a lot of people, they've either never tried it or never heard of it. So when you first started this, did you, like, what was it like getting these organizations off the ground? Were there a lot of people interested initially, or did you face any barrier with crocheting?
There weren't as many people interested at the beginning because I didn't know what the demographic would be. So I mainly reached out to people in my high school first, and while they would have loved to help, they didn't know how to crochet. And I quickly realized that this was going to be a common theme throughout all the places I would interact with of people my age, is that crocheting it's kind of a niche hobby in the sense that there aren't that many people that do it and do it consistently. And so it was only when I expanded my view outside of just people in high school that I realized there is a whole community of crocheters. Specifically, there are like the pins and needles groups at the libraries and like not just knitters at Glenwood Branch and organizations like this where a bunch of people from all over the county come together to crochet. So what I did was I just started showing up to the meetings. I started talking with these people. All of them were so unbelievably kind and welcoming, even though I was by far the youngest person sitting in that room at the time. They would share their products, they would share their past projects and what they're working on now. And the next time they came back, each of them came with a box full of crocheted items. So that's when I knew, these are the people that would be interested in contributing to this organization. And when I started working with them, so many of them had these great stories of why they wanted to donate. Either they had parents who loved to crochet and they had items that were no longer in use, or, their family has a habit of donating. I met this one woman, her family already crocheted and donated to multiple other organizations, and she decided to loop Crochet for Smiles into her list of donation places. And so I think without this community and without my friends in the beginning who tried their best to contribute even though they didn't know how to crochet, I think without them, Crochet for Smiles wouldn't be anywhere. And I said it before, I may have come up with the idea, but all of these people that have spent their time crocheting or even buying items sometimes and dropping them off and coming with me to donations, and then even my board, because we have a board of a couple people who also help with the donations, without them handling the organizational side of things, I don't think that Crochet for Smiles would have been as effective as it has been. After speaking with a lot of people involved, it's most gratifying for them to see the impact that it has. It's most gratifying for them to see that the kids are happy, learning how to crochet with the yarn and the hooks they donated, or that, these communities are warm, wearing the hats and the scarves that they've given. And so their unending generosity is what propelled Crochet for Smiles forward. So there were definitely some bumps at the beginning trying to figure out where my community was for Crochet for Smiles and who would like to get involved. But upon finding them, my heart has never felt so full. I think everyone I've interacted with through Crochet for Smiles has been a very genuinely kind and sweet soul, ready to give back in whatever way they can. So for multiple reasons, I'm incredibly grateful that Crochet for Smiles has led me to connect with all of these people.
Aw, that's so sweet. I love that you pivoted from just high schoolers to this larger community. Definitely, community is the biggest thing of an organization. So, the community that you impact, the community you work with is at the top. So amazing. And, pivoting when you have an idea and it doesn't work, going back to the drawing board, finding a different solution, those are the key things to making any organization work. Now, with such a busy life that you led in high school, how did you end up balancing your time between school, your extracurriculars, and your personal friends and family time?
The biggest part of it was knowing where to stop. I think I assume the people listening to this podcast are very ambitious. So sometimes it can be hard to know when it's time to stop. I think it's a skill and a talent that it took me a long time to acquire, and I don't think I've fully mastered it yet, to recognize when you've done a great job and it's time to put this one away. Because there are some people who will intern or do their own passion projects or create something, and they'll just keep pushing themselves and pushing themselves to the point where they're burning themselves out. So just knowing when to stop and allot time for yourself. If you can feel yourself getting burnt out and really stressed and really tired, it's okay to be like, I just need to spend time with my friends and family for a little. That doesn't mean you give up on what you're working on or that you have to stop, but it means you have to recognize when it's time to take care of yourself and when it's time to work towards your overarching goals. I think that no work you ever do should be at the expense of yourself, if that makes sense. I think the most important thing always is one's physical and mental health. And if those aren't in the right place, any success you have going forward will be at the expense of your own health, right? So I think just making time for the things you like to do. For some people, it's a sport. So even if you're just playing club or if you're just practicing, not even on a team, and let's say it's tennis, make some time to go practice at the court. Or, if you like to read, every night go ahead and sit down with the book. I think there is a misconception that if you want to succeed, I'm going to say college-wise or professionally, that you have to do the most of everything. You have to try every single thing. But if I'm going to be honest, a lot of these things I only took up, for example, these internships and research opportunities. I only took them up because there was something I cared about and I wanted to pursue it. And when you find that thing, whatever you're doing won't feel like work. You'll genuinely enjoy it. And that's why I think even if you're busy, if you're feeling fulfilled, it's okay. It really is okay. So I think, especially for high schoolers now in this kind of application environment, it's easy for them to just burn themselves out so easily because the competition is quite profound. I think that just knowing when, you have to take a step back from everything that's going on, this whirlwind of activities and internships and studying, and just breathe for a second, that is what will get you, through high school while being busy and gratified.
Yes, and I love that because at the end of the day, the most important thing is your health, your physical, your mental, your spiritual. Your health is the most important. So I'm really, really glad that you emphasized taking a step back. I think that is so crucial. And I think that's something a lot of people tend to forget to do, and me included. So definitely really important. Now, with any amount of success comes challenges and failures. Can you share a time where you faced a significant obstacle in your journey and how you overcame it?
Sure. And I think this one might be one that a lot of people can relate to. I'm Indian. Both my parents are engineers and my extended family is somewhere between engineering and medicine. So I knew when I was deciding what I wanted to do professionally that those paths were paved for me. If I pursued engineering, I had examples I could look to. I had, people with connections in the field. If both of my parents who live here are engineers, their colleagues all become a connection for me. And then if I do medicine, I have family members that own hospitals that have been doing medicine for 30, 40 years. So that's also a path I can follow with incredible role models on either end. But the more I tried, and I did try, in my freshman year, I really thought I was going to pursue medicine. And I interned at this genetics lab and I hated it. And I felt so guilty for hating it because it's a great field. You're making these medical innovations, you're helping so many people, and I knew I wanted to help people. That was something I always knew about, what I wanted to do for work. But I gave it a try and I really did not like it. I had to inject frogs and work with fish and it was just awful, and I did not enjoy it. So I came home and I said, I don't think this is what I want to do. And at the same time, I had been researching Gideon v. Wainwright for school. So I sat down and I talked to my parents and I said, I think I'm interested more in the legal field. And mind you, none of our family, none of our friends, none of our extended friends are in the legal field. So we were all flying blind. So they were like, their first, thought about the legal field was what they've seen in movies about people that work in criminal justice. And those are sensationalized and they're not representations of how lawyers actually operate. But they were opposed to it. They said it's a dangerous field. You're putting yourself at risk working with criminals. You can't do it. It's dangerous. And I believed them for a second. I said, wait, this might be dangerous. But I couldn't ignore the fact that even though, if I put it like I have two paved paths in front of me and then the mountain the other way, which would be the legal field, I was way more drawn to that than anything on the engineering or medicine side. So I made the decision to give it a try, knowing that I didn't know anyone in the field. None of my friends are in law, they're all also in like STEM and business. So I knew that whatever I did going forward, I would have to do by myself. And it might not be that big of a deal, and it ended up working out fine. But I was kind of nervous because I just didn't have a frame of reference because for STEM people, they say, do science and math competitions and, work in a hospital. But I didn't know what that meant for the legal field. So I think that was probably pretty challenging for me because not only were my parents a little bit apprehensive, they definitely supported me in whatever I wanted to do, but they didn't know enough about it to give me solid advice on what the best next step would be. So I had to determine that myself. But what I think that did for me is it made things clear, because I think I would have been worse off if I had followed in their footsteps than I am now, because right now I may have had to get here by myself, but at least I know exactly what I want to do, and my motivations for becoming a lawyer are crystal clear in my head. And I've also given it a try, right? I've interned, so I've been on the ground. I would say arguably the public defense office is the most grueling type of legal setting you're ever going to see. And so after seeing all of that, I feel prepared. And so being able to overcome it and say, just because I'm doing this by myself and I'm the first one doing it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. And it ended up working out pretty well. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge I've had to face, but it worked out okay. So it's not all that bad.
Yes, that is absolutely wonderful. Even if you didn't have any role models in the field that you chose to pick them because you like them. You took a step back and you reflected on what you really like to do. I love that so much. So, can you talk about one opportunity that you ended up leveraging during high school that you think helped get you to where you are today?
I'm not sure I necessarily leveraged any of them so much as I did make full use of what was available, because I think that in each internship I really tried to explore everything. I remember while I was interning at the Sherry Hoyter Law Office, I would finish my work and then I would stand and wait outside her office for her to hand off another file to me, even if it wasn't assigned to me. When I was done with that, I would run right back to her office and ask for something else to do. And at the Office of the Public Defender, I would often finish my work up and say, is there anything else I can do? And then with Senator Hester specifically, when I was working with her, I would do the work she asked me to do. And, for one of the parts of the internship, we had a cohort of interns. So I worked with her and I finished my part of it. Let's say it was like a slideshow. Then I would go back through, with her permission, and edit up the rest of the presentation just to make sure it was ready to be presented. And it was things like that, I think, that gave my mentors the trust to give me more work, more advanced work specifically. Because Senator Hester, upon seeing that, started giving me my own policy research tasks. And I was in full control. So no one was overseeing the work I was doing. They were checking it after I finished, but the process was completely up to me, and that hadn't happened before. So I think I just made use of the time I had, because let's say I'm going to be interning here I would do maybe 5 hours a day. If I'm going to be here for 5 hours, I want every minute of these 5 hours to be dedicated to learning something different, meeting a new client, learning something else about, the legal field, or a legal document or something. At some point, I was asking my mentor if I could file her documents for her, and she let me because she trusted me. And I made my mistakes, yes, but I made them in the office. So I made sure that if I didn't know something, it was always better to ask. And I definitely did ask. For all my mentors, the one thing they'll tell you is I never stopped asking questions. Because if I make a mistake and I ask them and they correct me, I'll learn and then I'll do better. So I think more than leveraging a specific opportunity, I leverage my connection with these mentors by proving myself as capable of taking on higher and higher and higher burdens of work, which is what they thought it was. But really, I was enjoying it. So it wasn't a burden so much as it was an honor to be working on some of these things. And I think that's what I would recommend for anyone else who is going to intern or is in an internship already. There is that, it's like a joke where, you're interning and then you run out of work to do, so you're just kind of typing random things on your computer until time's up. But I would say ask someone if they need help. Is there anything I can do to help? Most people appreciate being asked that anyway, and some people might even give you something interesting to do. So I would say leverage your time, because it's the biggest opportunity you're gonna get probably.
Asking for more, going above and beyond, especially when you're starting off. I think that's such valuable advice, not just for high school or college, but professionally too. It's so amazing. So thank you for sharing that. Now, our next question is a little bit juicier. What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give someone for navigating high school? So it could be about courses, clubs, initiatives, friends, anything like that.
I would give a couple pieces of advice. The first one, I would say from personal experience, is you should surround yourself with the right people, because my friends are so incredibly driven and focused and smart and clear on what they want to do that I think that they positively influenced me to be the same. Clear on what I wanted to do, making the best use of my time, being productive and efficient. And I would say quality over quantity. And I know everyone says that, but if you're thinking about college applications or if you're thinking about your own experiences, it's more valuable to have delved really deep into one experience or one internship or one topic of research than to be the person who has done 50 internships and is writing 7 research papers at a time. Like if you can do that and they're all great quality, then more power to you. For a lot of people, and this is where that economic thinking comes in, your time is finite. You only have a certain amount of time and you want to allot it to things A, you care about, and B, that actually matter. So when it comes to starting your own organization specifically, I encourage it. I think it's great to lead your own organization and be the first one to do anything really. I think it's a great experience, but you should also think about how you're contributing to your community. So if you're starting an organization that might already exist in multiple different versions, think outside the box. That's not a reason to not do it at all, but it is a reason to find something that you can add that hasn't been done before. Because it's much more fun to be a trailblazer in your given field, and I can tell you that for sure. And when it comes to juggling your time, I said it before, but take care of yourself first. Only a healthy person with a healthy body and healthy mind can change the world. And if you are a person who is struggling on any of those capacities, take care of yourself first so that you can take care of everyone else after. That being said, there is the misconception that you have to be doing everything in order to be deemed a successful high school student, or that like doing more is the bare minimum. So I know that especially applies when it comes to SAT and internships, but you should know, and this is a very college application specific piece of advice, that your whole application is holistic. If there's something you're not that happy with that you also can't change now, like your grades or your SAT if you're a junior, take the last SAT if you want to, take the ACT if you want to, but your application is holistic. Focus on the things you can control and excel at them. Do the best you can and have fun doing it. Because application or like the admissions officers can tell when you've enjoyed your work. And you'll be happy when you're in college that you spent your time in high school doing things you really love to do. So that's what I would say. And I can tell you that following my heart did work out for the best for me, because now I'm really excited to become a lawyer. And so don't be afraid to listen to your heart, even if your brain is saying otherwise, or your parents, or anyone else around you. So, and just like have a little bit of fun. I think that would be my biggest advice. You only really get 4 years of high school, and I'm realizing now that I've graduated how short they really were. And while I do wish I would have taken more time to have a little bit of fun, I'm glad I did, enjoy myself still throughout the 4 years.
Yes, those are all such lovely pieces of advice. And definitely, when you look back, you want to enjoy high school. I think that's really important, making sure that you're staying healthy, you're enjoying, and you're also doing, obviously, not just like partying, but doing things and making an impact on things that you really enjoy, the fields that you're truly passionate about. I think that's super important. So, for my next question, I'm gonna do a little pivot here. Everyone has big dreams. Everyone wants to do all these cool things, start all these organizations, but resisting the temptation to spend away full blocks of time on our phones is a struggle for many. So, what are some tips you would give to your younger self for prioritizing getting work done?
Okay, I was a serial procrastinator when I was in like my freshman and sophomore year. And that habit didn't really go away, but now that I'm older, I'm a little bit more tightly scheduled and I recognize the importance of getting my work done early, right? So I would say to be effective and efficient, that doesn't mean you can't use your phone or anything like that. I think that that might be too far in the other direction, from spending all your time on your phone. But if you get the important things done first when you're not distracted, that allows you to, give yourself a little brain break after. Whereas if you're taking your brain break first, it can be hard to, rip yourself away from that to go back and do some math or something that you don't really want to do. So this is like a general thing. It's not only for this, but if you do the hard thing first, and the easy thing after, it feels a lot better. Like I can tell you, if you want to like doom scroll or you want to bedrock for a little bit, it feels so much better to do it when you don't have anything else to do after. Your homework's done, you've submitted everything, and then you go and bedrock. Perfect. I think that's the best way to do it, honestly. And this comes back to what I was saying about like taking time for yourself. Because if you're done everything you need to be doing, then that's your me time. And also, I know a lot of people, their default, like, for example, like their quote unquote relaxing time is just kind of laying down and going on their phone. But there are a lot of different enriching things that you can do to pass the time. And again, that doesn't mean never go on your phone, but you could try like an instrument or art. Like for me, it was crocheting, obviously, or like just some kind of hobby that's for you. Because I know a lot of people try to leverage whatever hobby they have. They go, I like to paint, so I'm gonna start this. And for me, the crocheting into nonprofit pipeline ended up being like purely accidental. And if it works out for you that way and it's natural, that's perfect. But sometimes it's okay to just be like, I like to paint, so that's what I'm gonna do when I'm done with my homework. Because not only is it fulfilling for you, but it's something you enjoy doing. And if you allot yourself time to do that, then, you'll feel better in the long run. So I would say fighting the urge to just come home from school or your internship or whatever and immediately get on your phone. And instead, while your brain is already kind of working to get your other work done, that would be my biggest piece of advice. So maybe not like don't procrastinate, but leave yourself enough time for each thing. It's also worse when you come home and you're on your phone, then you have to do your homework at like the late night or something like that. And that's not your best quality work either. So push yourself to produce the best quality first and then go ahead and relax afterwards, is what I would say.
Yes, and I like that you said do the hard work first. So when you like come back from school, you can get on the grind really quick and then finish your work and then you can allow yourself to rest. Also, working in the morning, for me especially, I'm a big morning person. So when I work in the morning and do the hardest task of the day early on, it helps so much because your mind is clearer. You don't have like all of these notifications. You don't have all of that coming up that early because people aren't even awake at that time. So that's something I've found really helpful. But I like that you also said not just using your phone as a time to relax, but having these other enriching hobbies and things that you're passionate about to do. That is super important. So, this does bring us to the last question of the podcast. If you could have a heart to heart, girl to girl conversation with an aspiring girl in the business, politics, economics, philosophy fields, what real, unfiltered advice would you give her?
I would say there is nothing about you that will stop you from succeeding. Everyone is like capable of success. So I know when I was first getting into specifically politics, I do model UN, I do mock trial and these speaking clubs. Every single time I would say anything, I would get talked over by some loud man who thought he knew what I was talking about better than I did. And most people, to be polite, would just let them go. But what I'm saying is just speak louder. Genuinely, because that's how you're going to pave your own path and trailblaze in whatever field it is that you choose to do. I think that not even just for girls in general, but for people everywhere, it's easy for them to, first of all, be talked over and then think they're inferior because whatever they're saying doesn't seem to have any value. But I'm telling you, it definitely does. And so I'd say if you're in that kind of situation, instead of like silencing yourself, I would just say raise your voice. I think that the loudest people are not necessarily the most knowledgeable, but if you can, speak about what you know and what you definitely know very well in front of groups of people or to people like-minded just like you, then the people that are trying to speak over you will quickly subside, to put it nicely. I think that especially for as for a lot of communities, humanities fields can be a little bit unfamiliar. I think that definitely STEM is more widespread accepted as quote unquote like a valid field to go into. But if this is something you're interested in, if you want to be a philosophy major, go be a philosophy major. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not going to get employment after. I promise you, you will. It's better to do what you're interested in than what you think is going to make you the most money or what's going to impress people the most. Because at the end of the day, that could leave you with like a lot of people thinking you're cool or a lot of money, but then you won't be happy. So I think I said this probably multiple times over the course of this podcast, but my real unfiltered advice would be have fun and just do exactly what it is that you want to do, because you really can. I don't think that there's anything really stopping anyone, girl or otherwise, from pursuing what they're interested in. So don't let anybody stop you either, if it's like family, friends, the loud and who won't let you speak, whatever. Just brush past them and you'll get through it, I promise.
That is amazing. I think definitely when you're speaking and somebody stuffs over your words and says something, it can get so annoying. But I think right then is the time to remind yourself that your voice matters too, and you have to be confident and be outspoken. So being louder, I think quite literally really, really helps. Just being more firmer in your voice and again, being like confident from the inside, I think that's really important. So a huge, huge thank you to you, Emmy, for being so open and authentic with us today. This is actually our first time with a philosophy and politics person. So we've had some economics before, but this is our first time with philosophy and politics. And I loved it so, so much. I think that's the whole point of Computer Science, to highlight the stories of diverse female role models. And wow, it was so fun to hear all your incredible stories, tips, and unfiltered advice. So to all our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with your friends, and leave us a review. It helps us connect more ambitious girls to amazing STEM role models. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars and chasing those dreams. See you soon on Computer Science.